let's say you want to modify something. Anything on CATIA that you want to modify generally can be done using a double click. So for example, in the specification tree we have a pad and a sketch. To modify the pad, you simply double click on it, and that pop-up window that came up earlier comes right back up. It's as if we haven't set OK yet. You could type in 1 inch and hit preview, and you see that that part changes. I could change it to 5 inches and hit preview, hit tab, and that will activate the preview button so you can see what it's going to look like. So again, I could go to 10 and hit tab. Remember, you can zoom down so you can see the whole thing. It's showing you where it was, and when 10 comes up to here, that's what it's going to look like. So if I hit preview, that's what it's going to look like if you say OK. So again, that's how you modify it. Now, what I see most people do is they want to change the sketch, and then number one mistake they make is they go here and they select the sketch. And the reason why I tell you should always have the tree expanded is so you can see what you're doing. You're not good enough to work on this without seeing what you're doing right now. Look, I just created a new sketch. I'm not modifying the existing sketch. I just created a new sketch. So that is not how you modify a sketch. So I know I said I was going to come back to this one, but I'm just going to start from scratch. Go to 3D and hit part design. Again, you can pause the video whenever you want. Wait for your system to get caught up and then continue on. Make sure that this is the define in work object. Go to the YZ plane, select the sketch. You should be very comfortable at moving this part to the side right now. And at this point, you should be fairly comfortable with creating rectangles, which is in my action pad as well as under Sketcher and over here. So I'm just going to create this rectangle, and I'll start here at 2 and 1. I'll make this a 2 by 4, so I can count 4 units over and up 2. And then I could click a position. You'll notice that in the tool palette, it tells me that the location is at 6 and 3. The width will be 4 and the height will be 2. Click that position. Before I exit, I should always go to analysis and get in the habit of analyzing this to see if it's a closed profile. It's a closed profile. That means that all the ends are adjacent or they're touching. So I should be able to say OK and exit this and make a solid. So we'll go ahead and sketch our standard and hit exit. With the sketch highlighted, remember, always open the tree so you can see what you're doing. You can see sketch 1 is already highlighted, and we'll hit the pad feature. I'll type in 3 and hit preview. It's going in the opposite direction I like, so I hit reverse direction and I hit preview. I'll select OK and I'll accept that. Do you remember what to do if you ever want to change it? Simply go to the tree and double click it, and it comes right back up, and you can type in a new value and hit preview, and it shows you what that new value is. Select OK. All right, always open your tree so you can see what you're doing. If I want to modify the sketch, the most common mistake made is you select here and select the sketch icon, but look, it made a new sketch. I don't want to make a new sketch, I want to modify sketch 1. What I see people doing is they come here and they go to sketch and they start putting on dimensions, and it's saying it won't let me dimension it. And it's because you're in sketch 2, there's nothing in sketch 2. If I open up sketch 2, there's nothing here. If I open up sketch 1, that's where the geometry and constraints are for that sketch. Okay, so sketch 2 is nothing. So I'm going to exit out of the sketch. So remember, we can hit standard exit, or you can double click on part body to get out. I'm going to just hit exit here. You know, sketch 2 went away. So if you want to modify an existing sketch, you have to double click it, just like you double click the pad to get in modify pad 1. To modify sketch 1, you'll double click it. When I come back here, I can see I'm in that sketch. What is neat about CATIA and all the CAD softwares really that are doing 3D geometry. If I go to sketch and I select circle and I put a circle in the middle of this, and I can go back and check it, make sure everything is closed and I won't have any issues. So they're closed, it's not adjacent, so it'll be fine. I'll say okay. And we can go back to our part body by double clicking the part body. Notice the hole automatically pops in there. So any changes you do will automatically reflect here on the solid. So if I open up Sketch 1, double click it, and I grab a corner, sometimes it's easier just to grab a line. I'll just move that line up. I'll move this line over, and when I exit the sketch, it automatically changes the solid accordingly. Again, to double click the Sketch 1, grab the center point of the circle, move it to a new location, exit out, and the circle has been moved to its new location. Want to change the pad? Double click it, change your length to 1, preview that, select OK. You want to change the sketch, you open up the tree, double click the sketch, and you can move things around. I also might want exact numbers. So later on you're going to learn that we can go back to sketch and put on constraints. For example, for the circle, I could select that circle. I'll just bring it out where I can see it somewhere. Oh, my computer's locking up. Great. I'll just click a position, and I'll change that radius to 0.25. If I want to change it, you double click it. How do you change anything on CATIA? For the most part, you double click it. I'll change the radius to 1/2 inch, and now it's a 1/2 inch radius. When I exit this part, it has a circle that is a 1/2 inch radius. Most circles or most holes are not called off by radius. So I'd like to change that to diameter. All I have to do is double click on that. Double click on this. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Everything I want to change, I double click. I can change that radius by going in increments of 1 inch, 1/2 inch or so on. I also can swap out radius to diameter call out. And I want a 1 inch radius and hit tab. It shows me the 1 inch radius. I can select OK. Now when I exit out, that hole is 1 inch. Okay, so I wanted to cover that last part, exiting the sketch and modifying the sketch. And we've talked about deleting a sketch if you had too many. So again, for deleting a sketch, the #1 mistake I see people make is they go here and they go here and they're like, I can't change that radius value anymore, it's gone. That's because you're not opening the tree to do anything. And then they go back and then they put they try and put in a constraint and they can't constrain it for the most part. In this case it's doing a constraint, but it's put in parentheses, let me know it's not really a constraint, it's just a reference. So they click on it and then they exit, and then what happens is you've got 2 sketches. And I open up the tree, I'm like, what is this sketch for? And the most common comment is, I don't know, I didn't create it. But you did, because you went here and created a new one versus double clicking on this one to change an existing one. So if I wanted to change that value, you have to double click on this one, double click on this one, change it to a 1/2 inch. When I exit out of Sketcher, that hole automatically changes. This sketch needs to be removed. So you should have 1 sketch per pad. In this case, I got 2 sketches, a sketch I don't need, and that's why you want a contextual menu on that and delete it. And say OK, and that's how you get rid of that sketch. So this is what it should look like, a pad with a sketch. The whole purpose of creating those sketches is to make these pads.